Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on a Wednesday edition of you. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Hope everyone had a good sports Tuesday and you're enjoying your Wednesday, the 28th of January, 2026. We got about an hour plus to play with on this Woosah Wednesday. As always, get in on the conversation at Rich Q on Q. You can check us out on XIG. That's very easy to do at Rich Q on Q. TikTok, Rich Q on a mic. I mentioned on Tuesday's show, new platform. We are happy to announce we're part of the Millions family as well, millions.co. And by the way, that's all in front of the paywall, free content for you guys. As I mentioned, always get social with us on a Woosah Wednesday, which typically we like to see how long it might take the listening audience to get under my skin. We're coming at you live from our good friends over at SR 1029 FM The Game. Don't forget to download the AUDACY app. Check out Coastal Sports Digital Network. We're also powered by Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea, fresh roasted coffee, and Played Against Sports, 2 locations in Mount Laurel and Deptford. So I thought maybe we were going to be coming on today, talk a little NBA, a little hot stove baseball. Obviously the NFL takes center stage with what transpired over the last 24 to 48 hours with the whole, who gets in, who doesn't get in when it comes to the NFL and the Hall of Fame. And really the story that's kind of left everyone in shambles, if you will, is the fact that Bill Belichick does not get the call to the Hall. And listen, there's a ridiculous amount of layers to unpack here, right? I mean, it's the fact that Bill Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer is ludicrous. I mean, what are we doing here? It's really it's a disgrace. It really is. It's not even a disgrace. It's a sham. It's a pathetic disgrace. I mean, you've got are we at the point right now where some of these voters are so hell bent on sticking it to the hoodie? I mean, is that where we're at? Because there's really no other explanation how, if you're talking about the history of the NFL, if you're talking about one of the all-time great head coaches, if you're talking about the Mount Rushmore of head coaches, if we're talking about a gentleman, a head coach in Bill Belichick, not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but an 8-time Super Bowl winning head coach, not being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not being a first ballot Hall of Famer, then what are we doing? What are we doing? The fact that Belichick falls short of the 40 out of 50 votes needed, and you've got some of these cats that didn't want to vote for him. I mean, and Belichick, this guy is a football savant. He gave his life to the NFL. Now, I know where we're going to go with this today. I know exactly where we're going to go with this, but I mean, is 6 Super Bowls? Oh, by the way, it's not enough, and I'm not even talking about the 2 as defensive coordinator with the Giants to get to 8. And we know the Hall of Fame. We know the voting process is flawed. We know it's diluted. But you can't tell me that in a perfect world or an unperfect world, when you're talking about the NFL, the National Football League, the Shield, right? The sport we love, that we invest every single solitary Sunday for 6, 7 months, even in the off season. And a head coach of Bill Belichick's stature, which changed the game, which changed the course of franchises, won a countless number of games, a countless number of playoff games, and Super Bowls, and arguably is the all-time greatest head coach the sport has ever seen. No disrespect to Brown or Lombardi. And this man is not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's a disgrace. It really is. And it's a disgrace that you have petty people that didn't want to vote for him. And oh, by the way, let's talk about Bill Polian for a moment, who basically said, I voted for him. I didn't vote for him. I don't remember if I voted for him. Now, here's a guy that obviously, again, has a axe to grind against Bill Belichick because of all those times the Patriots were thumping the Colts. But you've got a guy in Bill Polian, okay, that turns around. And oh, by the way, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer. Now, 100% certainty might not be so firm after all. He claimed he was 100% certain he voted for Belichick for the Hall of Fame. And then obviously Belichick didn't make the cut in his first attempt. And now Polian, who is the ex-Colts GM, can't remember. And this all stems, let's just call it for what it is. Let's just call it for what it is. The NFL, and there are still the old school voters, some of the older school guys in the NFL that are just absolutely pissed off at Bill Belichick because of Spygate. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, you're telling me that ultimately you're not voting again for arguably the greatest head football coach to ever don a sideline, to ever put on a headset. A guy that was with the Pats for 23 years, plus his stints with the Giants. So explain this to me. In a room of 50 voters, 50, reporters, talking heads, media guys that have covered the sport since they came out of the womb, how in the world do you have 11 of the 50 who said no? And what's interesting, too, is that you kind of dig a little deeper with the voting block, including veteran reporters Polian and ex-Colts and Buccaneers coach Tony Dungy. Per the rat ship, per the mothership. Now, are we going to look at Spygate and Deflategate when we all know that teams were doing Spygate? Come on. I mean, just stop. You heard what Jimmy Johnson said. The NFL punished them. They fined the Patriots and Bill Belichick. They docked them a first-round pick in 2008. Now, Polian's backtracking and saying that, it's category untrue. I voted for him, but then you forget? And he's allowing some wiggle room. You're hedging a little bit? It makes no sense. If you're leaving out a Belichick, and look, I know my guy Eli got snubbed again. He's eventually going to get in, right? I've got my thoughts on that as well. But, what are the other reasons? Is it pettiness? Is it jealousy? Is it, thinking of, well, he's not technically retired, so we didn't really think about it like that. Now, there are people, I've seen a couple posts, and there are writers that I know that vote for the NFL Hall of Fame. And one of them is a very good reporter, a hell of an NFL guy, Paul Domovich. And he had a really interesting post. So he's been on the Hall of Fame selection committee for 25 years. Okay, he was on the coaches subcommittee this year that selected Belichick as a finalist. And he wrote, I voted for Belichick. I thought it was a shoo-in. I knew there were 2 or 3 people who weren't going to vote for him, either because of Spygate, the Hall's decision to reduce the waiting requirement for coaches from 5 to 1 year, because technically he's been out of the game for 2 years, but not technically retired, right? But did anyone imagine he wouldn't get the necessary 80% approval, 40 or 50? So then Damo goes on to say, contrary to popular opinion, the selection committee is not made up solely of sports writers, which is a fact. There are talking heads, radio guys, yes, broadcasters, he's 100%. So it's not all the writers had a grudge. We're just saying in general, there is this jealousy and pettiness when it comes to Bill Belichick. Okay, that's fair and that's accurate. So not all the Hall of Fame voters are writers. They're just not. Some of these are guys that have been in radio for 20, 30 years. Some of these guys that have been broadcasting on network TV for 20, 30 years. Beat guys, reporters, journalists, media guys. So it's a kind of a mixed bag. But now it's a flawed argument from some, and it's a flawed process by the Hall of Fame. Because now, are we going to start to say every time something like this happens, then the Hall of Fame's got to change? They're voting for players, coaches, contributors, seniors, and they did it last year, which was a huge mistake. And that probably contributed, if you read between the lines, to Belichick getting screwed. I think if you're going to do this with the Hall of Fame, coaches, contributors, players, that's it. Boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. You have three separate entities of the Hall, right? And the contributors can be anyone. You contributed to the game, media, talking head, broadcaster, equipment man, whatever, photographer, whatever. That's your contributor. And then you've got the coaches, and then you've got the players. And that's it. You cut through the red tape, period. You got these guys in a room that are arguing. You got guys in a room that are trying to state the case for the guy, the player they believe should be in. But you can't tell me that Belichick should not be in the Hall of Fame. Now, sure, maybe he waits another year, but it's almost like, think of a snub. Think of it from this standpoint. It's like a guy sitting there not voting 100% Derek Jeter, not voting 100% Ichiro, not voting 100%, Wilt Chamberlain or Michael Jordan. I mean, it makes no sense. It really makes no sense. And it just proves, it shows to the pettiness. It shows to the pettiness because some people can't get over stuff. They can't get over stuff. And I'm not going to sit there and, with the backlash of who voted for him, who didn't. It's just the fact that you got 50 members. You got 50. You need 40 votes. You're going to tell me that 10 guys are sitting there and believing that Bill Belichick is not a Hall of Fame head coach? And think about this, because he didn't make it, it means he was left off at least 11 ballots. And we know the voting's done in secret. The Hall of Fame doesn't disclose how anyone voted. I understand all that. But how about accountability and transparency? You're going to talk the history of the NFL, the National Football League. You're going to tell the story of the NFL, and you're not going to have Bill Belichick, good, bad, or indifferent. And if you listen to what Jimmy Johnson said, hell, everyone was doing what the Pats were doing. Go back a couple years ago, prior to the Super Bowl, when he was on Fox. And all these Spygate, I remember on the air at the time, I remember talking about this, like, this is not okay, yeah. Is this a shock? Is this a surprise? I mean, this guy's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. You're going to tell me George Washington is not going on Mount Rushmore? There's a conversation that needs to be had, because it's not even about somebody's worthiness when it pertains to being a Hall of Famer, or more accurately, a first ballot Hall of Famer. That, to me, is the issue. And it's petty. It's petty. It really is. You're talking about a guy, the sport means so much to him. And I don't know if you're looking at the last couple of years in New England. I don't know if somebody's fixated on the fact that he's dating a 25-year-old. I don't know if people are looking at him like, this guy's lost his fastball with UNC. Check mark, check mark, check mark. No, it's about Spygate. That's all it is. Deflategate, Spygate, that's it. Everyone's got an axe to grind. Pissed off that the Pats were such a dynasty, winning every single solitary year, winning 12, 13 games, winning AFC East titles, winning playoffs, going to AFC championships, winning friggin' Super Bowls. And it's not like they were perfect in the Super Bowl. They did lose. But it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. Jimmy Johnson even basically said, hey, man, we tried it. You put a camera up in the press box and you film the opposing signal callers. You take the film and match it up to what they're doing on defense. Then what Howard Mudd would do as the offensive line coach in Kansas City, you could see a guard looking at the sideline, not the quarterback when the play is called. Howard Mudd would single if it was man, defense, or zone, or whatever. They tried it in Dallas. They weren't good at it. Everyone's been doing it since the dawn of day. When the cavemen were getting ready to play football in the caves and they were scratching plays, with rocks and what, everyone was peeking at boo, seeing what the call was going to be. They've done this since the dawn of day. And some of these holier than now friggin' writers on their high horses and their pedestals, they want to basically stick it to Belichick. That's all they're trying to do. They're trying to stick it to Belichick. The NFL is not clean. Let's just get that out of the way. Okay? The NFL is not clean. All we hear about the NFL, they want to protect the shield. They want to protect the shield. The shield is everything. That's all Roger Goodell talks about, right? And by the way, the leak doesn't come from these reporters. It most likely came from the Hall of Fame. Because these writers don't know until it's after the fact and it got leaked out. So, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's all on these writers or these old school guys, but they do have to be held accountable. Like, okay, why can't we get on you and challenge who you voted to call out your credibility? If you're going to sit there in a room behind closed doors and you're going to state your case for and against, then why can't the public, the ones paying for these games, investing their time, buying tickets, beer, merchandise, networks, cable, whatever the hell it is, contributing to the sport, paying salaries, because we are, at the end of the day, we're contributing, then let us know. But they won't do that. They won't do that because they're gutless. That's the one problem. The NFL, the way it's run, it's always to pick and choose, and it's a convoluted voting process, okay? But they're gutless. Absolutely gutless. All right, 10 after 4, cranking it up on a Woosah Wednesday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. A lot of comments coming in. We'll rip through them as well on the other side. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Played Against Sports, Three Brooks Bourbon as well. You might need one on a Woosah Wednesday. Quick timeout. We'll come back in about 60. We'll open it up. I'll get into the Belichick a little more. We'll get into Eli. Also, the Browns with a new head coach. Some interesting rumors coming out of Philadelphia, which said Philadelphia Eagles, so we'll tackle that as well. And also, we'll dive into a little NBA time permitting. All right, 11 past 4 o'clock hour, cranking up on a Wednesday edition of On Cue. Don't forget, we are on X, also Kicks, Rumble, YouTube, SR1029, FM The Game. We'll repost this on Millions. Check out the channel, Rich Q on Q. You can get social with me. A lot of comments coming in. Appreciate you guys always checking out the YouTube channel as well. So we are diving a lot into the whole Belichick snub with the Hall of Fame. Look, he's going to get in, right? It's just... It shows that the system is broken, it's flawed, and I don't know if this is a, you know, does any of this really have to do with what's going on recently? The last several years in New England, the dating the young girl, and now the debacle of being a head coach back in college with the Tar Heels. Like, I think recency bias, some voters will look at that. And it's a shame because they're glossing over 333 games won. Oh, by the way, second all time in the NFL, 8 Super Bowl rings. Hello. I mean, just having a remarkable run with the Pats, having a great little stint as defensive coordinator with the Giants. So I don't know if they're glossing over all of this. I mean, it's just the timing is just very bizarre. It really is. And again, I'm not going to get on some of these. I don't know who did and who didn't vote for him. But the fact that we're saying he is not a Hall of Famer or a first ballot Hall of Famer is not accurate. And the system is flawed because if you're keeping him out, that's a major, major problem. And maybe also some people look at it and say, well, it's a numbers game because if you're going with the Veterans Committee and you want to stick on a couple guys here and there, and maybe he'll just kind of get in next time around, right? I mean, look, the whole Eli Manning thing, you guys know I'm a big time Eli Manning fan. Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer, but everyone's going to look at Eli Manning. They're going to look at his overall record. They're forget about his playoff runs. They're going to forget about his moments in the playoffs, his moments in the Super Bowl. Oh, by the way, handing Belichick and Brady 2 losses, including 2007 undefeated Pats, the team that everyone said was the greatest of all time, and they didn't win the Super Bowl. So you can't tell the history of the NFL without a guy like number 10 and Eli Manning as well. But there are agendas, perceptions, and the optics when it comes to a guy like Eli Manning and his one-loss record. Put up the stats. Put up big-time stats. Won, right? Won in the playoffs. That's what you get paid to do. Sundays are great. Win in January, though. Forget about September, October, November, December. And he won on the biggest stage, and they had remarkable runs. And he's going to have to keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's unfortunate. It is. Because, again, it's the second time now. And it's like, come on. Like, what are we doing? But this is what the NFL does, and this is what some of these voters do. They are kind of holier than now. Like if I were to give you any other quarterback that threw close to 60,000 yards, over 360 touchdowns, won 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs, you're going to sit there and say he's a Hall of Famer. But everyone's going to look at 117 and 117 and forget about his playoff record. Now, it's not as blatant as what they're doing with Belichick, because with Belichick, again, you can't tell me that Belichick's not a Hall of Fame head coach. So the system definitely broken. It is. It's broken. And like I said, now we kind of know. So you got Don Van Natta Jr., right? And Wickersham of ESPN. And they were kind of right to report what they did. Because we're talking about the journalism in sports, and we're always talking about I got to be the first. Here we go. And anyone that kind of works in this space, we want to know this stuff. We want to know this. We want to know that a guy like Belichick was snubbed. We want to know, it's got leaked out. We want to know why. You got to ask the obvious question. How did it get out? And it's pretty obvious. It was probably leaked by the Hall of Fame. I mean, listen, they did not want us to know that Belichick didn't get in. Belichick, maybe someone close to him, maybe they leaked it. I don't know if I'm going to go that route. I'm pretty sure candidates sign an NDA. So I don't believe I don't believe the Hall of Fame's suing the hoodie. But it's pretty evident that someone who spoke to Belichick over the weekend kind of described him as, he was puzzled, bewilderment, disappointed because he didn't get or secure at least 80% of the votes. Like I said, 6 Super Bowls isn't enough, plus 2 with the Giants. But again, with or without Belichick's right name written all over this, right, with the leakage here from the Hall of Fame, the optics of perception, it shouldn't have been leaked. It shouldn't have been. Should not have been leaked. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you now all of a sudden there's going to be a team like Arizona or the Raiders that want to stick it back to the NFL. Let's go hire this man so he can beat Shula and we'll show you he can still coach. We're not going that route. But if you're going to start telling the tale of the NFL, then let's be fair. You can't overlook certain players. You can't overlook certain head coaches. And it's just evident. It's clear that some of these voters, I'm not saying writers, so some of the writers that I do know that have a vote, back off. I'm saying some of these voters have an axe to grind. That's all there is. And Bill Polian backtracking just sounds like a fool. He just sounds like a fool. You can't you don't remember? Like you've got one job to do. You either check the box or you don't. So he was reported to have been against putting Belichick in because of Spygate. Let's just call it for what it is. Well, I think I voted for him. No, I did vote for him. No, wait, I don't remember if I voted for him. Then guess what? Take this man's friggin' vote away. Take it away. Look, ultimately, we kind of know when you read the room with this Spygate, Deflategate, those were probably the points of contention that pissed off some people. And all of a sudden, you get the little, whisper down the lane. Man, I don't know about this. Yeah, they got fined, but come on, man, they cheated. I'm tired of this guy. Always thinking he can bend the rules. Look what they did. Deflategate, Spygate. Here we go, and they were still winning. Screw this guy. Screw it. I'm going to punish him. He's going to wait another year. Now, again, the NFL came down in 2007. That was a first round pick. They got docked 250,000. Belichick was fined 500,000. Deflate Gate resulted in a 4-game suspension for Brady, which was another joke, and $1 million in fines. And we wasted taxpayers' dollars. That went all the way to U.S. courts. Like it was a waste. It was a waste. So now you got a rival GM in Bill Polian, who was a rival GM to the hoodie, to Belichick, his time when he was with New England. It just makes sense. It's too clear. That's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Goes to Luca Brazzi, chimes in. All the gates, perhaps. New headphones, who this? Heat 12 man, a.k.a. Heisman, a.k.a. Steeler Nation, a.k.a. Duval, a.k.a. Vince. Yeah, you did beat Man. We don't know. Man's probably on Zoom calls right now. My man, Money Mike, Pots and Pans, 718. How you feel about Giants' new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson? I can live with it. I'm a little more that they weren't able to pry away Monken, who took the Browns job, which I told you was going to be a bold move. Like, did we not throw in Monken's name? So now you're keeping this man in the AFC North. And that's because Jim Schwartz basically said, goodbye to the Browns, right? And apparently he was visibly upset when they went in the direction of Monken. If I'm the Giants, I would have went after Schwartz too. I would have. See, there's reports coming out with the Giants that I think, look, I think the energy that Denard Wilson brings and the fact that he is a no-nonsense, aggressive play caller. He is an aggressive play caller. Now, you better have the pieces in place, okay? And obviously, he's got familiarity with Harbaugh. He spent 1 year with Harbaugh back in 2023 when he served as the Ravens defensive back coach. So, I get it. You want that familiarity. And there's been a little bit of, resistance with this guy. Like, I'm not blown away if you're asking me. Would I have preferred to go in a different direction? Yeah. And I always harken back to you still need players on the field. But look, the Titans defense struggled considerably. And this guy was there for 2 years, right? So, I think again, uh, the one thing I've heard, because he's got no nonsense, he wants physical players that play smart and not soft, which tells me that's a shot across the bow to Deontay Banks or these guys that don't want to tackle. So we'll see. He knows football. He knows football, and they have plenty of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you're talking about edge rushers and Brian Burns, Abdul Carter. You have Dexter Lawrence. When he's right, and you know this, when he is right, he plays at an all-pro level as a defensive tackle. They probably got to clog up the interior a little more. They got to add a little more element to their run defense. They got to figure out a way to stop the run first and foremost. They get gashed, and then obviously the secondary needs help. But Harbaugh's bringing in guys that he is familiar with. If that kind of answers your question. I mean, he wants to bring in his guys that he can build a trusted coaching staff around, right? Ben says 2 coaching vacancies left. Who's left standing on the altar? I say Cardinals. Mess with ownership. Defense is terrible. Offense is lacking O-line and DB. Quarterback, they need a first-timer who has few options. Yeah, I mean, you're kind of at the we're at the portion of the show, the portion of the NFL season with the Super Bowl leaning, right in front of us. That okay, Raiders, Browns 1 and 2. So, we talk about that flurry, right? The frenzy. And I still find it interesting that Sean McDermott's name hasn't really been floating around. So the Titans and the Giants fired Brian Callahan and Brian Dable during the regular season. The Falcons fired Raheem Morris after the season ended. Then we go to Black Monday. The Browns got rid of Stefanski. The Raiders fired Pete Carroll, 1 and done. The Cardinals fired Jonathan Gannon. A day later, on what the frig Tuesday, right? On a thought out Tuesday, the Ravens fired Harbaugh after 18 seasons. A couple days after that, Mike McDaniel got the axe. And then we also believed prior to, that wild card matchup, okay, what's going to happen here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, and then Tomlin steps down after they lost, and he steps down after 19 seasons. And then what happens after that? You go to the divisional round, and the Broncos beat the Buffalo Bills, and McDermott is fired. I mean, it's just been bizarre, bizarre, bizarre. And I think with the 2 spots left, Vince, when you're talking about the Raiders and you're talking about the Cardinals, look, the Browns have a good defense built around Myles Garrett. He does. And I think Monken, he knows the AFC North. He's an AFC North guy. He's going to bring creativity. You're still going to need players, no doubt. They don't have as much, talent on the offensive side, right? And like I said, you still got that contract of Deshaun Watson, which weighs down on you in 2026, 2027. But the Raiders, to me, they're appealing. And I'm going to tell you why. You've got Bowers, you've got Genty, you've got the number 1 draft pick, right? The number 1 pick in the draft come April, and they've got $100 million in cap room. And I haven't even mentioned Max Crosby. So to me, and you got Tom Brady, and you're going to draft Fernando Mendoza. Like if I'm Sean McDermott, if I'm the Raiders, if I can't bring in a guy like Clint Kubiak, I'm going after McDermott. So the Raiders won, and then obviously Arizona. And I don't know who wants that Arizona job. Your guess is as good as mine. A Kingsbury? I mean, let's talk about what's left, right? A Nagy, right? Is he still available? Matt Nagy? I mean, I feel like these guys are going like left and right. These coordinators are like, Kubiak to me, I would love to see Kubiak. Well, I told you yesterday, which it made Eagles fans' heads implode. if I were the Eagles and if Seattle wins the Super Bowl, I request an interview with Clint Kubiak, and I tell you right there and then, I say, Clint, listen, I know we're bringing you an OC. We want to get kind of your give us how you envision, let's just say, if you're a head coach in the NFL. And if I liked what I heard, I would offer him the job and fire Nick Sirianni. I said that. I said that yesterday. I posted it. Said it yesterday or Monday on the show. And I stand by that. Nick Sirianni's got to go. He's the main reason these OCs are not taking this job. I don't give a crap what some of these beat writers are saying that are on the friggin' Philadelphia Eagles payroll. Some of these friggin' clowns will say whatever they want to push their own agenda and narrative when it comes to the offense. I mean, some of the crap that I'm seeing out there, you guys are harkening back 15, 20 years ago. They're casting a wide net because no one's interested and they're running out of options. Okay? So I believe the Raiders will make a strong push for Kubiak. Young guy, bright guy, averaging 30-something in the playoffs. Look at what we did with Sam Darnold, sticking with Fernando Mendoza. And, oh, by the way, you got Tom Brady, and you can kind of, whisper in his ear a little bit, bounce off some ideas. So I would go the Raiders and then, obviously, the Cardinals. With Monken off the table, pardon me. Who do you like as OC for New York? Yeah, I really like Monken. I mean, look, they're not going to get Clint Kubiak. We know that. The Giants are in a kind of a precarious position right here. Because do you go now they tried to get a deal done too. But I'll tell you the pivot in a second. But obviously they tried to get a deal done and they missed out on them. And that happens sometimes. So everyone thought it was going to be a foregone conclusion that Monken was going to follow Harbaugh to New York, and then he comes off the board Wednesday, right? And they were targeting hard. They worked on a deal for him to become the next offensive coordinator, but he held out because he realized he was also being courted by the Cleveland Browns. And if you guys know anything about the NFL, and I know you do, when these jobs become available, these young coordinators want to take a crack at it. So I think the pivot right now is going to be Davis Webb. The Giant, it might not be sexy, but the Giants obviously, they hold him in high regard. He was a third-round pick for the Giants, I believe 2016, 2017, right? He was with the Jets. He was with the Bills. Then he came back in the Giants. He was a backup quarterback. I believe Davis Webb is he's an aggressive guy. He wants to throw the football down the field. Obviously, you're talking about a former quarterback, so he can relate with Jackson Dart. You've got some toys at your disposal that you can play with this offense. So I think that might be the pivot, especially knowing now that Monken takes the job with the Browns. And it's a roadblock. It's a little bump in the road, and it happens. But I think this is your plan B, because the Giants, all they're trying to do, and I even said this prior to the season, it wasn't about wins and losses. And I got hammered for saying it. It wasn't about wins and losses. It's about the development of a young quarterback when he was going to give him a shot, and that was Jackson Dart after a handful of games. So I think now this is kind of a huge spot for Harbaugh. And remember now, if I'm Harbaugh and I'm looking on the outside and I'm bringing in an offensive coordinator, I need to make sure he checks off all the boxes. First and foremost, are you experienced enough where you can continue to help the maturation process, the growth of Jackson Dart? Because the biggest steps quarterbacks take in the NFL is year number 1 to year number 2. And he's had enough games in year number 1 where now we can sit there and say, what are you going to do in year number 2? So I think that's the pivot the Giants are going to make. Now, again, he's an up-and-coming coach. He is. He's an up-and-coming, good offensive mind. He's never called a single play in the NFL, but sometimes that's okay. And he's got no ties to Harbaugh. That's another thing. So sometimes, do I want to bring in my guy or do I want to go outside? Think about this, right? Kevin Petullo was Nick Sirianni's guy. Nick Sirianni decided, we're not even going to go outside the building. I'm going to bring in my buddy, and it blew up in their face. And then when everything went south, they fired him after the playoff loss to the 49ers. So if in that vein, I think it's a look. I mean, can I bring in Sean McDermott? Sure, but Sean McDermott wants to be a head coach. But I think the pivot's going to be Davis Webb. And if I'm the Raiders, I'm either looking at McDermott or Kubiak. And I don't know what the hell the Cardinals are going to do. I really don't. You're going to retread Kingsbury? I mean, yeah. And by the way, Joe Shane, who's a Giants GM, also has familiarity with Webb when they were both in Buffalo. So you got to kind of connect the dots with that kind of stuff. What do we got here? Have you heard they're planning to change the targeting rule penalty in NCAA? Definitely needs changes. Talks of levels like B-ball, flagrant 1 and 2. Definitely in favor of that. I did not. So you're talking about the flavor 1 and 2? I have to look into that. They should. That's, by the way, the flagrant or the clear path breakaway. That's the one thing that I'm noticing a lot with calling these games overseas. The breakaway foul, it's called like that. It's not even like, they don't even disguise it as a flagrant. Basically, it's clear path foul or take foul. But no, I would like to see them, and that's what happens, right? Because a lot of times, I see the issue with college right now. I know what college basketball is trying to do. College basketball, we know March Madness is the coup de grace. Like, we all love March Madness. Now, I'm pretty sure if you're bringing this up, I'll double check. Does this also have anything to do with Pitino wants? Because Rick Pitino is calling to expand the coach's challenge rule. And it goes back to what happened over the weekend. There were a lot of calls that were missed after watching the film, Saturday's win for St. John's over Xavier. So you look at some of these fouls that were called, they were very questionable calls, right? So I think what he's looking to do is like challenge, right? If I can challenge these out of bound calls, goaltending, basket interference, restricted area plays at any point, is it going to slow up the game? Now, teams, I believe you must have a timeout available to challenge, and then a successful challenge, kind of like the NFL, you keep your timeout, allows a second final challenge. But I don't believe the rule includes fouls. And if you're going to do that, if the NCAA is going to allow you now to start challenging fouls, if you put that in the sport of basketball, you are really slowing down the game. And that's not what they want to do. They don't. They don't. And I'm noticing that too in overseas, because a lot of these leagues, even the pro-am ones, they will use a running clock. Now, again, the quarters are a little different. The intermissions are a little different. The timeouts are shorter. Quarters are 10, 2 minutes in between, 5 for half. They want to speed up these games. They don't want to slow these games down at all. But that's interesting. I want to look at that a little bit. I definitely want to look at that. Absolutely. Man chimes in. What do we got here? Walking to the train now was like a combination of Frogger and American Gladiator. Let me ask you a question. When you were walking to the train and you were walking out on the street, did you look around and kind of turn to your buddy and say, you know what, this is familiar to me. I can do this. What did What did oh, okay, it's for football. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said basketball in the flagrant. Okay, there you go. I got you. So football targeting, how guys miss a full game for targeting instead of they'll have levels of targeting like a flagrant one and two, one just being a penalty, two being ejection. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. And I apologize. I misread and misspoke. And I went on my hoops tangent, but that's okay. But no, I'm fine with that. So it's something too the NFL needs to look at because we still don't know really what is targeting. Like I feel as though so it's a the targeting, like what are these defensive backs supposed to do? So we deem it unnecessary roughness, right? So if I'm lowering my head and I want to draw contact, I can't control my body when it's contorted like that. And when they talk about targeting, we don't really know. Like with the NFL, I don't ever see the NFL implementing a rule where they would eject you for targeting. Because if you go back 10 years ago, they had a college style targeting rule, right? That was like 10 years ago. And some of the ejections are kind of goofy. You're making contact with the official, you're arguing a call, you're putting a helmet on a play. Now that's fair. I understand a lot of that. You can't touch the official, you can't touch the zebra, you can't, swing and make a punt. I understand all that. We saw with Alex Pierce for the Colts because he bumped into the ref. You're making an obscene gesture. You're going to get thrown out of the game. But the NFL, every single solitary year, when they sit down with the rules committee, they're constantly trying to figure out what the hell is targeting, what's unnecessary roughness, what's roughing the passer. Like, what are you supposed to do? Now we're throwing the flag because if I wrap you up and I kind of toss you like a doll, that's roughing the passer. Sure, I get it. The NFL wants to keep the quarterback upright because that's the bread and butter. We know that. But if you go back like 10 years ago, I think at the time, Troy Vincent was kind of tinkering with this certain idea with the targeting, right? The targeting rule. And they were trying to figure out exactly how to clearly define it. And to this day, I don't think they can really define it. What was the game a couple years ago? Wasn't it the NFC Championship game? The Rams and the Saints? When the DB blew up the wide receiver? Well, it's uncatchable ball. It's like, what are you doing? There's zero rhyme or reason to what they're doing. And by the way, where we started the show, there's zero rhyme or reason to what they're doing when it comes to voting in the Hall of Fame. Because, like I said, the fact that the hoodie got overlooked is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. JD chimes in. Q, did you see your guy Tate, basically one of the top receivers coming in April, said he would rather play for a guy like Josh Allen? That's not what he said. He said he would love to play for Josh Allen, right? And he wants to get targets. That doesn't necessarily mean he's getting drafted by Buffalo, goofball. Kevin C chimes in. Q, I'm a little surprised by you on a Wusa Wednesday. You're a little more relaxed. And then you hashtag it Eli snubbed. I don't, because at this point, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. Like, we can do it. He's going to get in one day. It's just a question of when. But it's just already it's annoying, right? I mean, he basically carried two teams. Don't give me the defense crap. Yeah, they had a better defense in 2007. 2011, he could have been MVP of the league. It just makes no sense. You're talking about one of 12 quarterbacks with 2 Super Bowl wins, one of 6 with 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 10th all-time passing, 10th all-time with touchdowns, all the postseason yards in these playoff runs. He's not a Hall of Famer. It's ridiculous. And don't give me the all-pro crap. Don't give me the Pro Bowl stuff. Don't give me the 500 friggin' record. Warren Moon is a 500 winning quarterback. Did Warren Moon put up any numbers like Eli did in the playoffs? Did Warren Moon have any type of playoff success like Eli Manning? No. Just stop. Stop, stop, Stop. Two-time Super Bowl champ, two-time Super Bowl MVP, 57,000 yards, 366 touchdowns, right? 8-4 in the playoffs, but everyone looks at 500. Just stop already. He's going to get in, but it's like these same goofballs that didn't want to put Belichick in. Everyone's got an axe to grind. And, if you don't light it up and you're not over 500 games or 50 games over 500, where I can show you 20 of those games, 30 of those games were probably blown by the defense, his record looks a hell of a lot different. Even if you had 20 plus, now you're talking, you're 125 and 105, you're in. It's a 20-game difference. But it's like these guys that did not want to vote for Bill Belichick. People have their own agendas. They want to be too cute for school, and they just want to be the contrarian. That's all. They want to be the contrarian. Like, explain to me how, when you're talking about the all-time greatest head coach who ever walked the sidelines in the NFL, that donned a headset, out of 50 men that are sitting there in a room, not just all writers, okay? You're talking heads, you're talking media guys, beat reporters, broadcasters, color analysts, play-by-play, the coup de grace that have been entrusted with having a vote for the NFL Hall of Fame, who have the final say or yay, and they can mark off a player who can have his day in the sun, his bust right there in front of everyone on a Saturday afternoon. You're going to tell me, when you look at the Pantheon, you look at the Mount Rushmore of head coaches, Bill Belichick doesn't lead the way? 300 and something odd wins. How many Super Bowls? 6 with the Pats, 2 with the Giants, 8. Countless AFC East titles, countless playoff wins, taking a franchise to the heights consistently for 23, 24 years. But you, the guys that chose not to vote for him, are beyond petty. You're doing it because of Spygate. You're doing it because of Deflategate. I believe some voted against him because of what transpired the last several years in New England, the fact that he's dating a young girl and he went back to college and he's struggling in college. I honestly believe that you add all that into the mix, and that's exactly what they're doing. It's exactly what they're doing. I believe that. And it's unfortunate. It's absolutely unfortunate, and it's shameful. It's a disgrace. The NFL can't figure out what a catch is. They can't. Every week it's something different. Was it behind the line of scrimmage? Was it a forward pass? Is it a fumble? Was it a pass? Was it roughing the passer? Wasn't it roughing the passer? Was it pass interference? You know how many times you get tired of watching these frigging games? And on third down, all you hear is the announcer say, incomplete, pause, and there are no flags. Matt chimes in, Jet 16, Q, I'm a big-time Gangrene fan. What the hell are they friggin' doing? Your rant the other day was classic. How do you hire a ducker, but then you turn around, if you're Aaron Glenn, you're going to call it defense? So we didn't even get into, we're going to get into that in a minute. I want to get into that on the other side, because I've got an interesting take on that as well. All right, 4:45, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. Got about 15 plus, right, to play with. We'll get to your comments real quick. All right, 4:45. Got a couple more comments coming in here. Vince says, I'm sorry, Q. You sounded like you were trying to say Eli was better than Warren Moon. Could not have heard that right. CFL legend who the NFL said couldn't play the position. Yeah, he was. I mean, what do you want me to say? Warren Moon threw for what? Just under 50,000 yards. I think 290 touchdowns. What did he do in the playoffs? Isn't that where you're measured? Warren Moon was 3-7 in the playoffs, or 5-12, I believe. Never even sniffed AFC Championship games. Never sniffed the Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, if you're going to stick Warren Moon in, Warren Moon was 102 and 101. Eli Manning was 117, 117. Just stop with the nonsense. I mean, that's just ludicrous. Come on. I like how you add the CFL legend who the NFL said could not play the position. I never heard that before. And I like Warren Moon. I've interviewed Warren Moon several times. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Warren Moon doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. That's not what I'm saying. But don't give me the crap that Eli doesn't. So you guys want to pick and choose. He will get in one day, but Warren Moon can't hold a candle. Warren Moon was a wonderful, prolific passer. But again, what do you measure by? You measure by championships, making runs into playoffs. Warren Moon didn't do that. Eli did. Enough. Stop. And it's not about quarterback to quarterback to quarterback, right? Quarterback to quarterback to quarterback. Because eventually Phillip Rivers is going to get in and Big Ben is going to get in. So out of all those three, who actually had the most success when it comes to winning at the end of the day? Championships, Eli Manning, right? That's where you're measured, boys. Come on, you got to know better. All right, so here's a thought. Now, yesterday, you guys came at me full force about my Aaron Glenn take. Today just proved that Aaron Glenn will be fired next season. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. So the report is that the Jets reached out to John Gruden about joining Aaron Glenn's coaching staff. And I think Connor Hughes reported that. So Woody Johnson reached out to John Gruden, who's having fun doing Barstool, making money, doing what he does, and, just being that character. The fact that the Jets reached out to John Gruden about taking a role on Aaron Glenn's staff basically tells me at this moment, right now, bookmark it. Where's Luca Brasi? And by the way, I think it's his birthday today. So if it is, happy birthday. Bookmark it at 4:48. John Gruden, 99%, if he wants the job, will be the Jets' next head coach after they fire Aaron Glenn, probably 4 or 5 games into the season. It's a foregone conclusion. You can't tell me anything different. It's a foregone conclusion. Aaron Glenn is a dead man walking. And the fact that he decides to fire everyone that he friggin' hired after one season proves my point even more yesterday that you knuckleheads had to push back on. He should have been fired. He should have been fired. So you have an offensive coordinator, a first-time offensive coordinator, right? Tanner Eakstrand, and they fired him, right? So now they're looking, okay, here we go. We part ways. Let's bring in a more veteran head coach. You're going to tell me right now that John Gruden is not on the Jets' radar to be the next head coach? Aaron Glenn has 1 year. 1 year. 1 year to turn it around. 1 year to turn it around. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. At all. Theory, Eli better than me. No, not at all. Never said that. You guys like to kind of twist things. It's all about rings, though, right? You are measured by championships. Come on, just stop. And it's those that comment that didn't really watch Eli's career that would have killed to have Eli Manning because he had 2 of the most prolific runs that can't be ignored. Can't. I mean, you topple the Pats. You have 2 of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history. You're going to tell the story of the NFL without number 10? Stop. Take it somewhere else. Come on. Keep the drama to your mama on a Wednesday. Not happening. Eli will get in, period. We all know that. And it's going to rub people the wrong way. And when he does, I'm going to laugh my ass off. But back to the Gruden stuff and the Jets. So I'm telling you right now, you've got a situation in New York that is so volatile that Woody Johnson should have just fired this guy, clean house, and start over. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And the fact that they didn't hire Wink Martindale kind of tells you everything you need to know. So they hire Brian Ducker as the DC, and Aaron Glenn's going to call the defensive plays. He's still going to be in charge of the defense. That makes no sense. Makes no sense. Wink Martindale, we're talking about Sirianni scaring people away. Look at all the coaching changes the Jets have had. It's utterly ridiculous. And one of them's the fault of Aaron Glenn. He basically took Wink Martindale out of the Jets' DC candidacy because he was telling these potential candidates that he wanted to call plays defensively, which makes no sense. Then you're not bringing in a guy then. You're not entrusting him. You hire these coordinators for one reason. You delegate to them. You trust them. Here's the offense. Here's the defense. When I feel the need to give my input, I'm going to give input. If I have to take over play calling, I have the right to do that. But you get first crack. So you're talking about Wink, who's an experienced play caller on defense, right? But then the Jets are basically telling him, well, we're not going to allow you to coach the defense. And that's why he backed out. The people that are sitting here trying to tell me otherwise, you're goofy about Aaron Glenn. He's going to get fired. It's just a question of when. And it still wouldn't shock me if Woody Johnson fired him, soon. There's no guarantee. You can sit there all you want, but if a better candidate becomes available, you have to at least think about it. You have to. It's going to be such a long off season. If I'm you guys right now, I'm fading the Jets every chance I get. They're staring down the barrel of 4 wins again. And the fact that you have a head coach, he is clueless. He does not understand what it takes to be an NFL head coach. These late decision making with his coaching staff, that's pretty much leading to these guys not being an option on the table. Martindale was going to be a runaway favorite. Pencil in John Gruden. It's a done deal. It's a done deal. And, for all the funny Jet fans that were sitting there saying, you're going to bring in a retread, this, that, and the other thing. We don't want it. No. Well, here you go. Be careful what you wish for. Why don't you go after a guy like John Gruden? Okay. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that John Gruden is taking the job. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not. Mark and Wildfire chimes in. Q, do you know the guys that did vote for Belichick? Yes. I mean, do I know them personally? I know a majority of them. I've interviewed them over the years. I mean, do you want the names? These are the ones on the Hall of Fame committee who have come out publicly and said they have voted. And half of these, 20 of them, 25 of them, I know personally. Ken Summers, Arizona Republic, covers the Cardinals. Carucci with Buffalo. Pompey with Chicago. Tony G with Cleveland. Burkett with Detroit. Doherty, who's been with the Packers forever. John McClain, who's been covering the Texans forever. Eric Williams, I think he's with SI now in the Chargers. Armando Salguero, Miami. Gary Myers, unbelievable job covering the Giants. He's a great author. Samini with the Jets, ESPN. I mentioned Domowich 40 minutes ago, right? So you got Damo with the Eagles. Jerry Dulac with Pittsburgh. Mike Sando brought up something interesting that I want to get into. Koharski, who's been around the block forever. Jarrett Bell, USA Today with Washington. And then you have the at-large. Mary Kay Cabot, who does a lot with the Browns, Cleveland Plain Dealer. Jason Cole, who was with CBS, now fan-sided. Lindsey Jones with The Ringer. Sal Powell, obviously with the Eagles and, of course, ESPN. And Shireen Williams, who covered Dallas for years, Pro Football Talk. Now, the committee members whose votes are unknown, okay, there's a list of them that's available, but those are the ones that I pretty much told you. Now, Polian's with Sirius XM. He's a Hall of Famer. James Lofton is with CBS. He's a Hall of Famer. Clark Judge used to be with CBS. He's now with Talk of Fame Network. Dan Fouts, obviously the great quarterback, Hall of Famer, broadcaster. So there's a list of them. But all I'm saying is it's not all the writers. That's what I'm saying. That's all I was saying. It's not all the writers, right? That's all I'm saying. So it's like we look at these writers on face value and we think it's all the writers and it's just a body of work from the members of the media. That's all. That's all I'm saying. There is a boatload where you just kind of throw them into a mixed bag, right? You throw them into a mixed bag, and I'm telling you right now, unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. How, like, you just can't figure it out, right? Sometimes you can't tell Q nothing. He lives in his little dream world. All right. I don't recall anyone saying Glenn is a good coach. It's just over for him being fired this year. So let it be and just wait for that day. Why? So I can't talk Aaron Glenn anymore, but you can still bring up Cleveland Browns crap? Get the frig out of here. Or Shador Sanders making the Pro Bowl? Come on. You're fixated on the friggin' Cleveland Browns. I'm talking about Aaron Glenn because I have a Jet audience too. Come on. Just stop. Man, you see how he's censoring your comment about Eli? Loses his mind? Never. No. It's just, I know you get to a point where, like, I don't want to dumb down the comments for the listening audience with just bad takes. It just ruins the flow of the show. That's all. It just ruins the flow of the show. Like, you guys have kind of made it known your stances on certain quarterbacks that you like. You've made it known, like, some of you guys actually think Shador Sanders is an all pro and the guy's had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Some guys are fixated on the Browns and they used to be Steelers fans and now they're Jacksonville fans. Other guys are still kind of sulking in their milk over the 49ers. I got Giant fans that are pissed off. They hired Harbaugh. I have to hawk them off a ledge. I'm just not going to dumb down the show with some of these comments. We're going to keep it rolling. That's what we're doing. We're talking Aaron Glenn. I mentioned John Gruden. There's a reason that I brought it up. Sorry, Chimes and Q, you love needling the audience. It's not even about needling. It's not even about needling. I think guys, what they do is they kind of take certain things that I say and they misconstrue it. Like, I've never sat there and said Dan Marino was not a Hall of Fame quarterback. I never said that Warren Moon wasn't a great pocket passer. I just said it. But you guys want to hear what you want to hear. Actually, I think some of you guys kind of live in your fantasy world on a woosah Wednesday. But see, you're not going to allow me to re-woosah, right? Right? All you talk about is him getting fired. Dude, I talked about it yesterday and today. I'm not going to let it go. So guess what? If you don't like it, tune in somewhere else. I don't care. I'm bringing it up because of Gruden. I have Jet fans, again, that ask me these questions, right? Come on. Come on. Broncos country, let's ride. Vince, you're stretching today, bro. I mean, you're stretching, bro. What the problem is, like, I'll address this and then I'll just kind of kill it. Like, some of you guys, you just come half-ass with comments, right? You come with half-ass comments. So you pick and choose little segments that I'm saying, and you might have went to the men's room, maybe got something to drink, maybe working, and then you kind of take the last 15 or 20 seconds, and then you want to run with it. Like, some of you guys have been fixated on certain quarterbacks and teams and head coaches for the last 6 friggin' months. I mentioned Aaron Glenn yesterday because they fire the coordinators, and I'm obsessed with it. I mentioned Aaron Glenn today because of the reports that the Jets reached out to to John Gruden. It's a worthy story. It's a worthy story because it just shows how, again, the Jets are a laughing stock. So when you guys always ask me, what's your best fit? What's the best spot for some of these head coaches or these coordinators? We lump all these teams together. That's what we do. That's exactly what we do. But I can go back and I can look through every comment of every friggin' show. You guys pick and choose all the time. And that's okay. I get it. That's okay. I don't take it personal. We just keep doing what we're doing. As Michael says, I keep it 100%. And people don't like that. That's fine. People don't like it. I'm going to laugh next year when everything I'm saying now just comes about. I'm telling you right now. Like, I called it. In August, I friggin' told you Tomlin was gone. Harbaugh's on the hot seat. Dable's going to get fired. Pete Carroll's one and done. And sure, you might have heard it somewhere else, but I know I said it on my show, and I said it pretty much first when we were talking about these things. You killed me about Kansas City missing the playoffs. You killed me when I said Denver was going to make the Super Bowl or win the AFC West. You guys were killing me when I was saying the Eagles are going to be one and done. I think after a while, I get one or two right. I do know what I'm talking about sometimes. I understand if it doesn't jive with you guys, if it doesn't, match your narrative. You want a certain agenda or narrative pushed. I'm not going to give you that. I'm not going to give you that. So when you have an NFL owner who has a current head coach under contract and he reaches out to a former head coach and says, "Hey, come on my staff," to me, the handwriting's on the wall. That's all I'm insinuating. That's all I'm insinuating. I can't sit here and tell you that Aaron Glenn's going to get fired. I have no idea. I don't make that call. I don't have that cachet. But I'll tell you this, it is kind of funny. It is kind of funny with some of you guys how you quickly do a little flippy 180. Little flippy 180. Healthy Broncos would be in the bowl. You also called them winner division. I did. But that's okay. People like to kind of nitpick. It's okay. I can't wait when we talk NBA. I'll clear the friggin' room out when we go a little hot stove baseball. That's another thing. Because I'm sorry. Let me just address one more thing. Because the Super Bowl is going to be non-watchable, I was told we have to move on from talking NFL. So maybe we'll talk NBA and Giannis. You want to do that? You want to talk NHL? Hot stove baseball? Kevin chimes in, Q, love your football talk. It's absolutely friggin' real and it's on point. Hate the haters. It's not even that. We don't worry about that. They listen. We enjoy it. Few can do. Just remember that. Few can do. Let me get to a couple more in here. Mike in Ohio chimes in, Q, excellent points on Belichick. I don't think it had anything to do with Spygate or Deflategate. You might be on to something. By the way, you never mentioned what Sando said. Oh, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. So Sando, this is pretty interesting. This is what, and I didn't save it, so bear with me. Let me pull this up. This is Mike Sando on Belichick, the snub, right? Let me see what he says here. Because it is fascinating. Obviously, if you guys are just tuning in, Belichick, one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, 333 wins, 31 playoff wins, 8 Super Bowl titles, 6 as a head coach, got snuffed. Not in the Hall of Fame. Didn't get the necessary votes. But I want to read what Sando. Well, this is what Wickersham wrote. In an interview with ESPN on Tuesday night, Polian denied telling fellow voters that Belichick should serve a 1-year penance for Spygate. But he said he heard his fellow voters float that idea, but he insisted he didn't agree or disagree with the proposal. Polian said he voted for Kraft and even spoke up on his behalf during the deliberations, saying Kraft had no knowledge of the Spygate scheme. Polian added that he could not remember with 100% certainty, kind of like my friggin' listeners, if he voted for Belichick, saying he was 95% sure he voted for the coach and player, most likely LC Greenwood. I was shocked to learn Bill didn't get in, Polian said. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And he's constantly backtracking. Okay, so here you go. Let me see. I got to read what Sando wrote about some of these veteran guys that were on the ballot. And let me see. Yes or no would result in a 12-person class every year. Pretty soon it would be like the Basketball Hall of Fame. His comment, it was dead on. Last year I perceived strong support from Mike Holmgren to make it from the 5. Only Sterling Sharp made it, and I was shocked. Now, nothing shocks me. The way the process is interacting with the voters is creating unintended consequences. Okay. And then he wrote, this is why the Hall of Fame does not want voters revealing their votes. It creates a situation where outside factors could influence how someone votes. I mean, but what are you going to do? We're going to egg their house, get them on Twitter? That said, in this situation, if Belichick did miss, I think it's helpful to have an open discussion and would encourage such a discussion. So he pretty much gave you the lay of the land. And like I said, I think you're also looking at maybe some voters, well, he's still unretired. He's not retired. We don't want to take votes away from some of these that are veterans on the veterans, process of some of these vets that maybe are going to have the window shut. They're probably on their last year or two of eligibility with the finalists. So I understand it, but I don't feel it makes sense. And I think the process, I don't think the process is really laid out, right? I mean, it's just even goes beyond Belichick. It really goes beyond Belichick. It also goes to, how the voting is done in the NFL, right? So, it doesn't make me feel better about the process. It just makes me feel kind of aggravated that there's no reason Belichick shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, right? It just doesn't make sense. Eagles E chimes in. Q, did you see the article claiming that AJ Brown's projected trade value is roughly equivalent to Rashid Shaheed and Jacoby Myers? Reminder: Q, Brown is 28 years old, superstar wide receiver. He's had some big season with the Eagles. Do you think they're going to move him? I don't know. I don't know what the Eagles are going to do. I told you yesterday, I believe it's still a great landing spot. I believe it is still a very good landing spot because you have pieces in place. You have pieces in place. And if you're an offensive coordinator, you want to play the long game. And that's not what some of these guys are doing. And that's the problem. They're not doing it. You would think they are, but they're not. I'll read this because it's comical. Reading bots from different platforms to make them sound correct. Not really, but appreciate it anyway. QNN, hard at work. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch Fox either. I don't. I actually do have multiple platforms where other people kind of comment in, but that's okay. I mean, I get it. You guys always want to be right. That's okay. You want to find little flaws. That's what the trolls do. They want to find the little flaws, the little cracks in the armor. Not happening. Not happening at all. Kevin C chimes in one more time from Tom's River. Q, when you look at the over and under, you see that the Giants are one of the most betted teams to win the Super Bowl next season. Yeah, I mean, I'm not buying into that at all. I think that is the trend of what the Patriots have done. So everyone's looking at the Giants with Harbaugh and believe they're going to win the Super Bowl. It's not happening. Not happening at all. If they went from 3 to 4 wins to 6 to 7 wins to 9 to 10 wins in Harbaugh year number 2, I would take that in a heartbeat. I would take that in an absolute heartbeat. Oh, see this here. This is now what makes sense. Here you go. So this is what Sando wrote. Okay. Hall of Fame voter who saw Belichick as slam dunk. I don't know anything about voting results, but if this is true, we'll find out officially next week. The question is, how could this happen? Before I list possibilities, understand this. This is a good point of reference. Belichick, Kraft, Craig, Anderson, and Greenwood are competing for 1 to 3 spots separate from the 15. That's what it was. 15 modern era finalists. So 50 voters each pick 3 of the 5. Between 1 and 3 make it 40 plus votes needed for anyone besides top vote getter to make it. So what Sando is saying, it's a zero-sum game. Huge change made in 2025, 250 total votes to go around for 5 candidates with a high bar for clearance. That makes sense. So let's say 5 to 4 voters, pretty much like a guy like Belichick, and they're going to vote for him regardless. So now you funnel votes for the to the competing candidates in hopes of basically boosting them over the 40 vote threshold. That is logical. That's logical, and it makes sense. But I would say some of these voters, if you back me in a corner and if you've asked them, if you gave them truth serum, let's just say 10 voters in the room, are you going to disqualify Belichick because of Spygate, cheating, Deflategate, Spygate? And they say yes, well, that's a problem. Now, they're entitled to that, but are we not? it's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Character, right? I mean, come on, man. Ray Lewis is in the Hall of Fame. My guy LT's in the Hall of Fame. Like, there are some in all of sports. There are some guys that don't have the best character. Now, are we equating this like Tom brought up? Q. They're equating this basically to roids in baseball, and these guys are going to get punished because at the end of the day, it's cheating. What Belichick did was cheating. But then, if you listen to Jimmy Johnson, he's telling you, here's another Hall of Fame head coach, that it's been done. He's telling you it's been done. So I'm going to take Jimmy Johnson's word over, what some of you guys are thinking. Belichick should have made the Hall of Fame. He should have got in. He shouldn't have been snubbed. I mean, there's to me, I just don't see there's any kind of wiggle room in this debate. All right, 5:15, going to start wrapping it up. We fired off a little early today. Back at it tomorrow. We got hoops later on. As I mentioned, check us on the millions.co platform. You can check out the channel, Rich Q on Q. You can basically just hyphenate it and you'll find, and that's all, again, all free content. Also, SR 1029 FM, The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Next week, or maybe after the Super Bowl, we'll let you know about another platform, maybe a change of time for the show as well, but we're working on a couple other things, add a little more of a video dynamic and element with a couple of these other platforms. Might be going live too in a couple different states, so I'll have a little fun with that. Let me squeeze in one or two. Got through you guys, got through you. Who haven't heard from? Sarge, we got through you. Mark and Wallyford got through you. Nicky Boy got through you. Franchise in Baltimore chimes in. Q, I'm kind of laughing. I know how bad you wanted Monken. I did. You're a Ravens fan, just like Sal. I did. I think he's a very good offensive coordinator. I think that's a good hire for the Cleveland Browns. They just need to figure out what they're going to do at the quarterback position. That's all. Which a lot of these teams have these questions as well. Arizona, the Jets, Miami, Cleveland, the Raiders, even though we all believe that ultimately the Raiders are going to draft Mendoza, which is a no-brainer. That's why when you guys asked me what I thought the best landing spots between these last two franchises, whether it's going to be the Raiders and or Arizona, with Monken going to Cleveland, I said the Raiders. Crosby, right? Genty, Bowers, the tight end, the number one overall draft pick, and you have $100 million in cap. That's a great landing spot for anyone, whether that's going to be a Kubiak, whether that's going to be a McDermott, whether that's going to be another young up-and-coming offensive coordinator and or retread. I don't know, but that's a great landing spot. PJ chimes in, Q, the more I think about it, Belichick not getting in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot may be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree, right? Barry chimes in, Q, let's just be honest. Yeah, whatever, dude. Secretly taping your opponents for a number of years had something to do with it. Come on, Q, don't be clueless. Listen, he was punished. He was punished. So by that rationale, so follow me for a second. So if you're going to call me clueless, which fine. By that rationale, what's going to happen when Tom Brady is up for Canton? What's going to happen? Seriously. You're going to sit there and not vote Tom Brady in because of Deflategate? Is that what we're going to do? We're going to gloss over Tom Brady, who, oh, by the way, only won 7 Super Bowls, 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time league MVP, offensive player of the year, comeback player of the year, passing records, all decade, franchise leaders. The list goes on and on. Arguably the greatest quarterback to ever sling a football. So when Tom Brady's up for enshrinement in Canton, will you have these 10 other morons that decide to not put Belichick in because of Spygate and Deflategate? They're going to do the same thing with Tom Brady. I can't wait for the outcry. I mean, people in Boston will blow a gasket. There's one quarterback in NFL history who was named to 2 all-decade teams. That's Tom Brady. I mean, I just gave you the list. It goes on and on with Brady. So the saying that decide we're going to punish Belichick because of Spygate, then are you going to have the balls to turn around and punish Tom Brady for Deflategate? Is that what you're going to do? Because that doesn't make sense. Because if you're factoring cheating, okay, I don't care what they did after the fact. I'm well aware of what they both did respectively after the scandals. But if you're disqualifying Belichick because of Deflategate and Spygate, and you were jealous of him running rampant through the AFC and winning the AFC East and basically pissing on teams for 23 years, then you better disqualify Brady. And I don't care about his time in Tampa Bay with a cup of coffee. Yeah, he won it. I get it. But if you're going to disqualify Belichick for cheating, well, Tom Brady was suspended and got fined for Deflategate. That everyone thought was cheating, which again was a crock. I mean, it was an absolute crock. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing, the Deflategate. It was just the fact that it has to go to a 3-judge panel, the United States Court of Appeals. It was a joke. It was a waste of, and then about, not, giving up the cell phone, this, that, the other thing. I mean, just stop already. Stop, stop, stop. And oh, by the way, after Deflategate, mind you, if you go back, what happened after Deflategate? What happened? Now, again, you guys misspoke. You're saying he won in Tampa. Well, yeah, he also won when they beat the Falcons. But again, that's it's all a moot point. Point is, if you're punishing Belichick for cheating, then by the definition, Brady cheated. Are they going to punish him? My whole issue is that the system, the voting process is flawed. That's all. And guys have agendas and they're pushing their own narrative. And that's not fair. You're giving these voters way too much power. I'm telling you right now, there are guys that don't like Belichick. They don't like how Brady looks. They don't like how Eli looks. They're going to use it against them. That's what they do. They do the same thing in baseball. Even with the guys that cheated with the steroids. In the 70s and 80s, they were taking uppers. They were taking greenies. They were on speed. They were on friggin' coke. The 86 Mets, come on. Half that starting lineup was coked out. We want to pick and choose. Again, it's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of friggin' character. It's not the Hall of morale. It's not. And these guys have the power. Or these voters have the power. And they're really doing a disservice. Their vote, they're not, there's no justification. Like, sit me down with you. Let me ask you why. Or why not? Or why did you? Let me grill you. Let me find out. It's like not voting for a guy like, the total number for Ichiro, or Jeter or Rivera. You got one guy in the room that's just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it. Some stat geek, analytical guy probably still got Bill James's baseball book on his shelf. No, I don't. But you know what I'm saying? You give them way too much authority, way too much power. It's just, it's embarrassing sometimes. It really is. It is. You're talking about guys that changed the face of the NFL, changed franchises, changed the whole complexion of NFL history. And let's see what you do when they're up, like a guy like Tom Brady. It's a bad job by the voters. All right, 521. Got hoops later on. Don't forget, check us out on millions.co. Back in the saddle manana. Probably fire off about 4 time pending. and we'll mix in a little more NFL. I definitely want to get into a little NBA with this whole Giannis news. Once out with the Bucks. Don't know if the Knicks are going to be in play. We'll talk a little hot stove baseball for a couple minutes. See if we can track down Costco too later in the week. All right, don't forget we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. You guys have a wonderful Sports Wednesday. Good stuff with the comments as always. Appreciate you guys chiming in, even if some of your comments were a little off base and didn't make sense. We still appreciate it nonetheless. Have a good Sports Wednesday. Back in the saddle tomorrow. Don't forget you can follow me on social media at Rich Q, X, IG, TikTok, Rich Q, Mike. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, mon dia.